back to the QGreenland video tutorial series. In session 3, we are going to take a first look at what the QGIS interface looks like. A cool thing about QGIS is that the interface is very customizable. You can position things and move things around to your liking. Let's take a tour of the QGIS project file and all the folders that you saw in your core package. At the very bottom of the interface is something that we call the status bar. The status bar shows a lot of really useful information. For example, it shows the coordinates of wherever your mouse is at the moment in this thing called the map view. It also shows the current scale of your map and some other things as well, like the coordinate reference system that your map is in. The projection of all the data sets is in something called EPSG 3413. That's the code based off the North Pole stereographic projection. On the left side of the screen, I have two different panels showing. The bottom panel here is called the Layers panel, and this is probably the most important panel that you can have open. The Layers panel shows all the different layers in QGreenland. When you were looking at the QGreenland download package, you saw that there's main topic folders, and if you look within those folders, you'll see individual layers associated with that main topic. This is the browser panel, so that you could see other projects and open other things. I prefer to keep this panel turned off. The way to turn it off or remove it from your interface is clicking the little X appearing in the upper right-hand corner. At the top, there are different kinds of toolbars that you can have in your QGIS interface. Let's look at the Map Navigation toolbar, for example. This toolbar has a bunch of different buttons that lets you move things around in the map, zoom in, zoom out, and zooming to particular places. There are many different toolbars that you can have open. You can turn toolbars on and off depending on your preferences or what you're using, and you can move them around and position them in different places in the interface. Finally, at the top here is the menu bar. There are a lot of functions that you can access through the menu bar, including changing views and analyzing data. If you want to turn on and off toolbars, again, these are all of our toolbars. You can just go up here to the top of your interface and pretty much anywhere, just right-click. And when you right-click, you'll notice that this little window comes up and gives you the option to toggle on and off all the possible panels and all of the possible toolbars that could show up in your interface. These are the ones that I checked and are already toggled on. You can uncheck them if you don't want them to show. You can also move around different toolbars. When I hover my mouse over one, I get a little arrow symbol, and it also tells me the name of that toolbar. I can click and drag that toolbar anywhere I want it to go so I can move it around. Feel free to play around with that if your interface is into your current liking and customize it to something that feels good for you. Let's look at the Layers panel again. Remember, our layers are the data sets that we have been collecting. When you start to play around with them, you'll notice all our layer topics. We call these layer groups. Then nested within these layer groups are all of our individual QGreenland data layers. To access them, click on that little arrow next to a group and you'll see all the layers that are nested within that layer group. The layers that are listed up at the top in your Layers panel are the ones that are going to show up on the top of the map view. And the ones that are at the bottom in the Layers panel are going to show up underneath. So it sometimes might be the case that you have certain layers toggled on and you should see them in this map view, but you don't. The reason why you might not be seeing them is because they might be covered by a different layer on top of them. To solve this, move layers around and turn off other layers by unchecking the box. One thing to note is that the main layer group needs to be turned on for any of the layers that are nested within that layer group to also be turned on and viewable. If you want to save changes to your project file, I recommend doing that often. You can either do that up here with the Save button in the project toolbar, or you can do it with your menu bar. I recommend right now either not saving what you're doing, since you don't want to overwrite the original QGreenland project file, or if you prefer to save it, give it a different name so you don't overwrite that original QGreenland QGIS project file. Alright, let's do our first practice task to get more familiar with the QGIS interface. Your tasks will vary from toggling things on and off to customize your interface by moving things around. Take about 5 minutes and go through the tasks listed on the screen, or just familiarize yourself with the interface and the different things you can do to customize it to your liking. Once you have completed your practice tasks, please continue to the next session.